trying to retake previously lost positions near Mykolaiv. So for the time being, they're shelling us with artillery and missiles without allowing their land troops, expecting our severe counter-action. The situation is still problematic at the occupied territories, where they shell the communities, and we have no humanitarian supplies access to them. We cannot bring water and medicines there, and the Kherson residents who require help could not be helped. This is a critical situation which needs to be resolved because the occupiers have closed down all the ingress and egress points. The only connecting highway is to Crimea. At Mykolaiv region, there is artillery fighting using MLRS. This night, the suburbs of Mykolaiv were shelled again. Luckily, no casualties among the civilians, but psychological pressure is extremely high because they had cluster bombs exploding at nighttime, which caused substantial threat to non-combatants. But other than that, the situation is more or less stable and controlled in the districts that are neighboring so-called Transnistria republics. So we have enough defense troops there deployed. Two clarifications and then the questions from the audience. You mentioned that there are territories where the humanitarian situation is quite tough. We knew from the news about Borislav district of Kherson region. Can you mention other geographical locations where the situation is as acute? Well, close to Velika Alexandrivka community and Nova Osakarivka, these two settlements is where the fighting is taking place. So the local residents have no supplies of humanitarian supplies. A question from Ukrinform. Tell us, please. Quite recently, they informed about the damage caused to Mykolaiv grain storage facility. Well, can you tell us what this facility is all about? What acreage does it cover, etc.? Thank you. Well, here, after they intended their pseudo intentions to deblock our ports, allowing the shipments, including that of grain, to be out of those ports. But actually, Russia started shelling the port infrastructure in Mykolaiv region and thus hitting this grain storage facility, which only suggests that their intentions are not clean, they're not ready to help resolve the food crisis. They don't care what they hit, what they damage. That's why the destruction of this grain storage facility happened such that we didn't have strategic reserves of grain there, but the destruction of the physical storage facility as the element of infrastructure speaks for itself. We can add to the journalists who cover this topic is that we have information that Russia has started illegal transportation of Ukrainian harvest from the occupied territories of the south of Ukraine into Crimea and then to the territory of the Russian Federation. Other questions from the audience? Well, can you please explain to us the nature of the situation along the front lines? So some people label it artillery duels, or is it a one-sided shelling from the Russian Federation side? So can you explain to laymen what's happening there? Well, what's happening right now there is what could be labeled artillery duels, but also air duels, because the enemy carries out systemic airstrikes, receiving respective response from our units. For the time being, this is distance fighting, no coming closer for the land troops yet. What are the goals of the Russian occupiers? What are the targets when they shell our territories? Well, there's no system in how they choose their targets. It almost looks like they use old, outdated maps, because trying to hit some dot on the map, they constantly cover with their shelling the residential area, garages, cars, and social infrastructure like schools, government buildings, not those sites that have no military intentions or purposes. What is your current take on the activity of the enemy in the Black Sea? In the Black Sea, the enemy uh, is, on the one hand, tries to keep a distance from the coastline because they uh, acknowledge the ability to repeat the downing of Moskva ship. But at the Snake Island, they installed a couple of air defense systems so that they will uh, defend their stockpiles from our strikes from the shoreline line. At the very beginning of the full-scale intervention, the maritime assault has been announced, but except for a couple of attempts during those 105 days, which were repelled, still the enemy keeps trying to identify the options to carry out some subversive operation or some sort of the assault landing operation. How confident can we be in terms of the security of the coastline that we defend? We feel quite confident there because we stand on our own land. We defend our sea and our skies, but still, we would ask the civilians not to prevent the military to perform their duties, because you should recognize the coastline is still a front line, could be used for the enemy for landing operation, or could be used by defense troops to repel such attacks. So let's have rest after the victory. Right now, please allow us to focus on our jobs. Any questions from the audience? If no, that's it with this briefing. Natalia Humeniuk, the head of the South Command Press Center. Our next briefing would be at 2:30. We'll talk to Denis Marchuk, Deputy Chair of the All Ukrainian Agrarian Council. Thank you. Stand with Ukraine.
Слава Україні!